Hey, what's up, everybody? I am so glad we're back. Had tech issues last week. Don't know why, and don't really care. I'm glad that StreamYard is up and running again. In today's training, we're breaking down the differences, excuse me, between HIIT training and strength training, the pros and the cons, which type of exercise should you be leaning towards the most? What's the cost benefit ratio? And why do we even break down the differences between types of exercise to determine, what's best for us in terms of our fat loss journey, our body composition journey, whatever it is, the end goal for us. What exactly should we be doing in terms of exercise, and what type of exercise really plays a significant role in the metabolism? So this was a highly requested training. Lifestyle and one-to-one members may have already seen this training. I rolled it out on the website last week, and I'm posting it here because I think a lot of people have this basic question, and there's a little bit of confusion, right? When you hear HIT enthusiasts talking about the benefits of HIT training, you want to sort of know how to fit in other types of exercise, especially if that might not be your thing. Some people don't really love the feeling of getting their heart rate up super high or jumping around or getting jacked up. And so, some people might think like, well, if I can't participate in HIT training, if I just can't really do plyometrics or do certain moves that aggravate my knees or whatever the case may be, then what should I be doing? If I have to modify everything, is it really worth it? And on the flip side, you'll see a lot of strength enthusiasts talking about the benefits of strictly strength training. And if you're someone that genuinely loves HIIT and cardio, you might be wondering, like, do I need to avoid that type of exercise completely? So I'm lifting the curtain here, and I'm going to explain both types of exercise, and how honestly both can really fit into your lifestyle. They both can complement each other. It really doesn't need to be this black or white, all or nothing thing that we might try to make it out to be because of what we might be hearing on the internet or from certain fitness influencers. You guys already know there's a lot of information out there. A lot of the time, you'll see things that completely contradict other things. So it becomes very confusing. That's why I want to give you um, unbiased education to allow you to make the best decisions for yourself, ultimately, without any outside influence. Okay, so as always, that is the goal inside of these trainings, is to literally give you the confidence to be a lot more secure in your decisions, and really get the why behind everything. I'm definitely more of a data-driven person. I like to understand data and research, but I also understand the qualitative side. So some people just may not love how they feel in a HIIT training type of workout, for example. Other people may not love how they feel inside of a strength training workout. Okay. So I want you to understand that there's a lot of options. So when we limit ourselves and when we put ourselves inside of a box and try to conform to what universal standards say, we really kind of naturally limit our decisions, right? So I want to make sure you understand there are a lot of options for you when it comes to exercise and moving your body. There's just no right or wrong. Okay. So I want to start with that. So before I take it into strength training, HIIT training, the pros and cons, we have to sort of understand, generally speaking, I'm going to use the example of fat loss because that's what a lot of people are after, right? So We could talk about weight maintenance, we could talk about bulking, but I don't think anyone in here specifically is trying to bulk. I don't think anyone in here is really like looking to step on stage anytime soon. Will consider that a very niche population. So generally speaking, we're going to use fat loss as a primary example. And when we're talking about fat loss specifically, we need to understand first that we all have a unique output. Okay. So when we're talking calories in, calories out, there's still a bit of confusion when it comes to all of the factors that go into your calories out, for example. So, when we're talking about total daily energy expenditure, what we're talking about is the total amount of calories our bodies require to maintain our weight. Okay. So, a lot of different factors will come into play to determine your calories in, calories out. Okay. So, the biggest factor inside of this number, your total daily energy expenditure, is your basal metabolic rate. Okay. So understand that we all have a unique basal metabolic rate. Okay. This could also be considered, I've heard the term couch calories. This would be the number of calories that the bare minimum, okay, bare minimum calories for your body to sustain function. Okay, so we're talking just systems in the body, right? If you think of the body as a total system, all of the pieces inside of the system have unique calorie requirements. Okay. So if you didn't know that, now you know. It's pretty cool. So your liver, for example, requires 200 calories a day, something like that. Okay. So when you add all of that in, you've got your basal metabolic rate. Okay. So if your BMR, and some of you might have a scale that tells you your BMR, some of you may be able to plug in your information inside of an online calculator to get at least an estimate of your BMR. It's not that hard to determine what like a roundabout estimate would be. Understand nothing is going to be exact. Okay. Even maintenance calories, total daily energy expenditure, AKA maintenance calories is still a range. Okay. And the range is going to be dependent upon a number of different factors. So if your weight changes, for example, if you lose 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 15 pounds, now your body is going to maintain that weight in a lower calorie range. Okay. And it's going to be lower compared to maybe somebody else who has always been that weight. So you lose 10 pounds, automatically your body is going to require less overall calories. Okay. This is where crash dieting, for example, is always going to be a terrible idea. Okay. Because when your body is adapting to, let's say, a calorie deficit, it's slowly going to adapt and systems will sort of make their own adjustments automatically to accommodate for that lower calorie intake. Okay. If you're intentionally lowering your calories from a nutritional deficit, for example. Okay. So if my basal metabolic rate is 1,200 calories, if that is my bare minimum, I'm just using that for like easy peasy math, right? So if I have a 1,200 calorie basal metabolic rate, and then I exercise on top of that, but let's say I only consume around 1,200 calories, that's going to quickly force my body into adaptation faster than it would if I took a mild calorie deficit, let's say, 1,500 calories for simple math, Um, but I would need to determine my total daily energy expenditure in order to determine a mild calorie deficit. So if my body requires 2,000 calories in terms of how often and frequent I exercise, how often I move throughout the day. So, nurses, teachers, hairdressers, stay at home moms, those who are naturally on their feet all day versus sitting behind a desk, you're naturally going to have higher calorie needs, which have to be considered when you're talking about calorie deficit range, okay? And if you're choosing a mild or aggressive one. So just know that choosing an aggressive calorie deficit, a deeper deficit than you actually need, that's going to force the body to adapt much faster. And essentially, you'll be bottomed out like pretty quick if you're just dropping too quickly, too rapidly. Because understand that when you are 10 pounds later, 15 pounds later, whatever, that is, your body is also going to require much less. Okay. So essentially, here's where understanding your total output and the role your exercise will play in terms of increasing your or accelerating your fat loss experience or putting you at like a like a an unnecessary roadblock. Because this is what often happens is we're not just participating in exercise in order to see fat loss. Typically, we're combining exercise with a calorie deficit. Is that fair to say? If somebody was just going into a fat loss journey, 9 times out of 10, they're not just participating in exercise to see that fat loss. They're also going to lower calories or, follow a traditional diet, do something with their nutrition in order to see that fat loss, right? Okay. So consider all of the factors that go into your calories out. Even though your TDEE, total daily energy expenditure, is always a range, and there will always be a number of factors that go into the range, it's still beneficial to understand generally what that range is so that you don't drastically reduce calories to the point where you'll quickly bottom out because that's where you will see changes in your athletic performance, changes in your energy. For women, changes hormonally. So if we're seeing, changes in our cycle, that's where you'll experience more aggressive hunger, more aggressive cravings. It's just highly unnecessary, right? So, in order to break down and dissect the role that different types of exercise plays in your fat loss, we need to take it sort of like this, a structured exercise duration. So let's say 30 minutes to 1 hour of exercise every day. Doesn't matter which type. You could call it cardio, you could call it strength, you could call it HIIT, you could call it yoga, doesn't matter. Okay? So the calories that you burn in a traditional workout duration will always 100% always be relatively low compared to your total output. Okay. So even if you're going to a HIIT class and you're burning 500 calories or 600 calories in one workout duration, that 600 calorie burn is always going to be relatively low compared to your total output, especially if you take, let's say, a 500 calorie burn in a workout class, and then you go home and sit behind a computer desk all day, or you just go home and lay around for most of the day, right? So that 500 calories is is always a very small piece of the total output. I hope that makes sense. Okay. So, this is why you'll hear phrases like, you don't exercise to lose weight, or you don't want to consider a calorie burn at all in a workout duration, because compared to your total output, and again, let's say you can use me as an example. My body requires around 2,200 calories, right? I have a lot of muscle mass. I move a lot with my kids. I make sure I schedule a daily walk every single day, at least 45 minutes to an hour, even if I'm working during that movement block, because I know if I have a sedentary lifestyle where I'm sitting behind a computer for most of the day, I have to make some sort of nutritional adjustment on the back end. And because I don't want to live in a calorie deficit necessarily, I don't want to lower calories. I choose to schedule a walk every single day. I choose to take the extra step to go to my kids' practices and walk around the track, or I try to move around and participate with the kids throughout the day, because that only helps add to my output, okay? My total output for the day. And if I don't want to change calories drastically or at all, then that's going to be one way to ensure my output is always within that higher range. If I do choose to sit all day, every day, without moving, without as much structured exercise, then I will have to somehow make a nutritional adjustment if the goal is fat loss. If the goal is not fat loss, then who's to care, right? So this is why we need to start to shift our mindset away from a calorie burn during an exercise session. It just doesn't really matter, okay? So when we're talking strength training, for example, there is, yes, a calorie burn during your strength training duration. Okay. If you wear an Apple Watch or a Fitbit while you complete your strength training for the day, you might see you burn a number of calories, right? Maybe 200 calories in 30 minutes. However, that type of exercise is going to break down muscle fibers. Okay. So, as the body is breaking down muscle fibers during the workout and after the workout, so let's say after the workout, you stretch a little bit, you drink a protein shake. Now your body is starting the repair process. So, that breakdown process is during the workout. The rebuild and repair is coming afterwards, when you eat, when you rest. Okay. So, all of this requires systems in the body to work. And that also requires energy. Okay. So, if you're somebody who thought that HIIT training, for example, gives you that extra post calorie burn, or EPOC, right? Post exercise calorie burn, strength training has that as well. Okay. So both types of exercise will give you that post exercise calorie burn in some form. So with strength training, it's going to come in the form of the body breaking down muscle fibers, and then when those muscle fibers rebuild and repair, you have lean muscle mass. Okay. So this is where understanding the different types of exercise and how they can actually complement and work together makes logical sense. Because if I have, let's say, 3 days a week of strength training where I'm focused on specific muscle groups that I work on those 3 days, then my body gets adequate rest and recovery. Let's say I eat enough protein to support what I do in the gym or at home. And that's going to allow the muscles to rebuild and repair quick. Now, the more lean muscle that you have on the body, the more calories are required to support that lean muscle. That's why men will always lose fat faster than women, because men naturally, biologically, have more lean muscle on their body compared to women. Now, that doesn't mean women cannot build lean muscle, right? So you need to compare your story to the old you that wasn't exercising. So if you're just starting to exercise, here's where you can compare, let's say, old Caitlin before exercise, just living sedentary, and now with 3 days of strength training after 4 to 6 weeks. So after 4 to 6 weeks, maybe you start to notice muscle definition. Okay? So you've been putting in that work 3 times a week in your strength. You're going to see some muscle definition. If you're eating in a mild calorie deficit, you'll probably see some fat loss in addition to that lean muscle that's visible now through photos, measurements, etc. Okay? So this is where understanding that now after 3 to 4 weeks, or what is it, 4 to 6 weeks of consistent exercise, I now have a higher TDEE or output. I have a higher energy requirement. So even if I were, let's say, eating exactly the same before and introducing that exercise, perhaps I was maintaining my weight in calories. So even if you changed nothing about your nutrition, you're now entering that type of exercise consistently. You have more lean muscle on the body. So that is naturally going to raise your output slightly. So even if you had been eating exactly the same before exercise, this is where you might start to notice those changes, because although your calories in has that range has not changed, your total energy out has changed, especially by introducing protein, for example. Protein has the highest thermic effect of food. So if I were to eat 100 calories of protein, around 30 to 40 calories are spent literally just breaking down and digesting the protein. Okay. So, this is where understanding things like NEAT, non exercise activity thermodynamics, so walking, moving throughout the day, this is where understanding all of the factors that come into your total output, how that really does have an effect on energy out. Okay. So, while every diet out there, while every program out there wants to focus solely on the calories in, reducing calories in, we need to understand that there's just simple ways to increase our calories out. And when we increase our calories out, we don't need to drastically change our nutrition at all. A lot of the times, your nutrition, the only changes you might want to make are hitting a protein goal and maybe lowering some fat. That may not require a huge change in your total calories in at all. But guess what? Now we're getting the right calories from protein. We've got a higher thermodynamic coming from food. We're actually fueling our lean muscle. Okay. So when we put lean muscle on the body, that becomes a natural fat burning machine. Okay. So the more lean muscle you have on the body, the more calories you're going to burn at rest. Okay. Total daily energy expenditure at rest. So, therefore, thinking about your total daily energy expenditure going from 1,800 calories all the way up to 2,200 calories, that's a big adjustment, and that would require not a lot of change in your nutrition. Okay. This is literally the reason that a lot of people will naturally lose more fat entering a strength training program. Okay. That's literally it in a nutshell, because strength training will put lean muscle on the body. If you add protein to your diet, you'll start to support that lean muscle a little bit better. You'll start to burn more energy at rest, taking the pressure off burning a ton of calories in a workout duration. Because as we already mentioned and talked about, the calories burned in a workout duration will be, what is 400 calories or 500 calories on the high end compared to 1,800, right? So it's more about the little things that you're doing every single day over time than it is about going balls to the wall in a single workout duration inconsistently. Okay. So that's what I need you to get. It doesn't matter if you burn 900 calories working out twice in a week. What matters is if you're doing a little bit of strength training, maybe 3 to 4 times a week over 4 to 6 weeks. Okay. So this is why a lot of my content is specifically focused on habit and behavior. Okay. Because if you have the habit of exercising consistently over a 4 to 6 week period, you will increase your total output. You will have that will happen naturally as an effect of what you're doing. Okay, combining that with hitting a protein goal, guess what? It's almost impossible not to see results. Okay, that's just how the body wants to work. So if you're choosing to work with your body, this is the easy way to lose fat. There's an easy way and there's a shit ton complicated way, and we'll talk about both. Okay, and this is why strength enthusiasts, for example, really hammer this in because this is the easy way to do it. Okay, logically, when you think about it, could you carve out 3 30-minute strength sessions a week and create a daily non-negotiable movement block? Could you do that? Those are two simple things you would need to do over time to lose fat. You throw in a protein goal on top of that, perhaps a water goal. You've just accelerated the process, okay, without doing anything crazy. So that's why strength enthusiasts will highlight strength training as um, the premier type of exercise. We will talk about the benefits of HIIT training as well. Ultimately, though, I need you to understand this. There is no need to necessarily jump into 5 to 6 days of exercise after not exercising consistently at all. Okay. So this is where consistency really does come into play. If you're just somebody that doesn't exercise at all, it is way more beneficial to start with a little bit and a daily movement block because that's going to go a long way for you. Okay. It's going to be highly unlikely that you'll go from zero exercise to 5 to 6 days of exercise right out of the gate. But nevertheless, we're going to talk about HIIT training and the added benefits of HIIT. Okay. So the one thing about HIIT training or high intensity interval training, if you've never understood what that acronym means, high intensity interval training will use a lot of energy in a short amount of time. So, if you're somebody that is really pressed for time, okay, you've got maybe 15 to 20 minutes to work out, if that. Here's where the benefit of HIIT really does come into play because that type of training is going to give you a lot of bang for your buck. So, HIIT training is going to use mostly carbs. Okay, so if you're fueling your body properly with carbohydrates, the type of training that style requires is carbs and then a little bit of stored fat. So if you don't have the carb stores available, the body will be forced to use stored fat for energy. But again, here's where your nutrition really does play a large role because if you're somebody that does primarily HIIT training, that is going to require a lot more energy than, let's say, a steady state cardio workout or even a low impact strength training workout. It's going to require more energy of you in the workout duration. And yes, you do get a post exercise calorie burn effect with that type of training because you're getting your heart rate into different training zones. Okay. So the body will continue to work. And especially if there is like in traditional HIIT, you'll have some body weight strength movements or some strength movements using light weight involved integrated into the workout as well. So you will get some strength in your hit typically, depending on which type of workout it is. If you're doing like traditional hit class, you might have some more weights involved. If you're doing like a hit type of bike ride or a body weight boot camp, something like that, then you're going to get more cardio. But here's the difference. If you're just participating in hit training, you don't necessarily get an even breakdown across muscle groups. Okay. So if you were to participate in HIIT training 4 times a week, for example, and some of those workout durations are back to back, you are running the risk of overtraining and overstressing muscles that you had worked the day before. Okay. So, this is where strength enthusiasts really do push strength training over HIIT if you're somebody who likes to work out more frequently in your week. So, if you're working out more days in the week than not, it will benefit you to have a pretty specific structure to your fitness program because if not, then chances are you're you're just kind of guessing at what areas and what muscles you're working in your hit training, and a lot of times that's going to overstress certain muscles. And when you do that, it becomes very difficult for the recovery process to be effective. Now, remember, the whole point of breaking down and stressing the muscle is to let it rebuild and repair to get that visible muscle definition and that lean toned athletic look. So the reason you may not be getting that lean toned athletic look and you're just doing hit training is because you might be doing your hit too frequently and not allowing the body to recover. You might be under consuming protein. You might be over consuming fat. You may be over consuming carbs. It may be a combination of all of that, which becomes very difficult to pinpoint exactly where you're going wrong in your training and in your nutrition. Okay. So this is where it really does come down to the little things and not exactly to do a full 180 and to just go from, you know, blanket calorie deficit, for example, without tracking protein into 4 to 5 days of hit training. Okay. So now a lot of times going from nothing to something you will start to see results. You're going from nothing to something. Okay. So whether the something is hit or walking or yoga or strength, you will see results initially, of course, right? Over time, this is where you're really going to experience that metabolic adaptation quick, depending on the type of calorie deficit that you may or may not be following, um, and participating in that type of training more frequently. Okay. So this is really where it becomes crucial to understand, generally speaking, calories in, calories out. Because if you're bottomed out in the calories and you've been doing HIIT training alone for 6 months and you're not seeing any results, it's going to most likely come down to the combination. Okay. So if you were to flip the script, for example, and participate in some strength training and then tag on 1 to 2 days of HIIT, for example, while focusing on a protein goal, then you will start to see those results much quicker than you would if you just continue to spin your wheels. If you continue to spin your wheels and you're already bottomed out in calories, there's nowhere else to go but up. So this is where if you are experiencing like extreme fatigue, trouble sleeping, cravings, hunger, it's really going to become difficult for you to stick to that 1200 calorie requirement without binging on the weekend, for example, or binging in the evening, okay? So having that balance and having a decent ratio becomes key because nothing matters if you don't adhere, okay? If you can't adhere to 1,200 calories long term, forever and ever indefinitely, it's just not worth it to drastically reduce calories by that much, especially when we know the benefits of strength training and daily movement and hitting a protein goal can result in a natural calorie deficit by increasing our calories out. Okay, so overall, in a nutshell, this is why you'll hear from strength enthusiasts about the benefits of strength training, and we'll also hear a lot from HIIT enthusiasts of the benefit of HIIT training because a lot of people that participate in HIIT training, if that's like the first experience of exercise right after you have a baby or newly postpartum or later in your life you participate in HIIT, you will see those results. You're going to see those results initially. You're going from nothing to something. Okay? So this is why we see things like HIIT training's better than strength training's better than HIIT. In reality, you guys, you can make both of these options available to you in your life, but the structure has to make sense. Okay? If the structure doesn't make sense, then you're literally just going to spin your wheels and make things harder than it needs to be working against your body instead of working with your body, okay? So, in actuality, both of these styles of training can absolutely fit into your life. And I can leave a perfect example in the description of what that would look like. The problems you will face from overtraining in HIIT will become much more evident and much more clear than they would if you were overtraining in a strength program, for example. If you're overtraining in a strength program and you're following a decent structure, then all you would have to do is throw in some deload weeks. Okay. Every fourth week, deload. Maybe you drop down your frequency from 5 lifts to 3 lifts. Maybe you focus on mobility, working at like 60% capacity instead of PRing. And then guess what? You're coming right back to adhering to that type of training. If you're overtraining in HIIT, it's going to be very, very evident very quickly in terms of how you're feeling and how difficult it is to adhere to, a very high intense workout, a very challenging workout, more days in the week than not. Perfect example, if you go do a really hard boot camp style workout and then you go lay around all day as a result of that 500 calorie burn, then that 500 calorie burn doesn't really mean much. Okay. So I need you to just understand that regardless of the type of training you like and gravitate towards, it really does come down to doing the little things consistently. Because when you do the little things, they are actually the big things. Okay. So we need to be less calorie burn in a workout mindset and more strength building. How does this workout improve mobility? How does this workout allow me to de stress? How does this workout allow me to feel strong, empowered, more confident? Regardless of the other types of training that I incorporate. Okay, so I hope that this was beneficial to you. I hope this gives you reassurance that you don't actually need to choose one thing over the other. You don't have to exclude anything when it comes to fitness. There's no one size fits all. So you can do your yoga, you can do your CrossFit if that's what you like to do. You want to be a little bit smarter about it and recover in certain weeks, but you can do whatever type of training you specifically like. And even if it's a daily walk, that is extremely beneficial. So, I hope you found this training valuable. My DMs are always open. Shoot me a question, shoot me a comment, and I'll see you next time.